The Man in the Black Hoodie, a True Urban Nightmare. This happened when I was 22. My name's Marcus. I was walking home late from my shift at a grocery store on the south side. I'd worked a double that day, so it was close to midnight. My feet hurt, my back hurt, and honestly, I just wanted to crash in my bed. I had my headphones in, trying to block out the noise of the city, the hum of cars on the main street, random yelling in the distance, sirens cutting through the night, same soundtrack every night. That's when I noticed him. He was standing dead still under a busted streetlight up ahead, black hoodie pulled low over his face, hands buried deep in his pockets, just standing there watching me. At first I brushed it off. You see all types of people out at night, and half of them you don't want to make eye contact with. I figured he was just hanging around waiting on someone, maybe smoking, but something felt off. I kept walking, my footsteps echoing softly in the empty street, the city lights flickering above me, and a few steps later, the uneasy feeling in my gut only grew stronger. I looked back over my shoulder, trying to catch a glimpse of what or who might be there. He hadn't moved, still under that broken street light, still facing me, unmoving, almost like a statue. I shook it off and turned the corner. My headphones kept playing, but I lowered the volume, suddenly hyper-aware of every sound around me. That's when I heard it, footsteps. I turned my head slightly, just enough to glance back, heart pounding in my chest. He was closer now, still not running, not even walking fast, just a slow, steady pace in my direction. It gave me chills, like a cold wind down my spine. I pulled one earbud out to make sure I wasn't imagining things. I could hear it clearly, his shoes scraping against the concrete. Not rushed, not sloppy, deliberate, almost purposeful. I tried to act like I wasn't bothered. The last thing you want to do out here is let somebody know you're nervous, even if your mind is racing with fear. So I turned down a side street, hoping the shadows would swallow me up and give me a chance to disappear. It was darker, narrower, and there were barely any people around, just the echo of my own footsteps and the distant hum of the city. I thought maybe I could lose him, just slip away into the maze of alleys and side roads, but that was a mistake. The silence felt heavier, pressing in on me. The second I stepped onto that street, I heard the change. Something shifted in the air. His footsteps, faster, heavier, echoing behind me. My heart started pounding, thumping in my chest like a warning drum. I cut across the street, trying to play it cool, acting like I belonged there, like nothing was wrong, but inside I was screaming at myself not to run yet, fighting the urge to bolt. My apartment was still a few blocks away, feeling farther than ever. I spotted the corner store on the next block and thought I could duck in, maybe lose him in the aisles or call for help, but when I got there, the lights were off, closed, the windows were dark, and the street felt even emptier. The one safe place I counted on at night wasn't an option. I felt exposed, out in the open. That's when I felt real panic creeping in, cold and sharp, making my skin prickle. I turned again to check, and he was right there, closer than before, his presence impossible to ignore. Not on my heels, but close enough that I could feel his eyes on me, standing under another busted streetlight like he'd planned it, blending into the darkness. His head tilted, like he was studying me, sizing me up, deciding what to do next. I could see more of him now, his features coming into focus as he stepped from the shadows. Tattoos crawling up his neck, his jaw clenched tight, like he was holding something back, and his hands kept twitching inside the hoodie pocket, restless and tense. I tightened my grip on my keys, feeling the metal bite into my palm, held them between my fingers like makeshift brass knuckles, just like I'd practiced in my head 100 times. My mom always told me, don't walk home without something in your hand. I started walking faster, every muscle tensed. My heart was racing, and I could hear his footsteps picking up again, matching my pace. When I glanced back this time, he wasn't walking anymore. He was jogging, closing the distance. That was it. I took off, instincts finally taking over. My legs moved before my brain caught up, adrenaline flooding my system. I sprinted down the block, breathing hard, lungs burning with every step, praying I could make it home, praying I wouldn't trip or slow down. My apartment was 3 blocks away, but it felt like a mile, like I'd never reach it in time. But he was behind me. I could hear it, every step getting louder, his footsteps pounding the pavement, chasing me, echoing through the empty night. I cut through an alley, hoping to save a few minutes on my walk home. Bad idea, I realized almost instantly. The stench of garbage hit me like a wall, and the darkness seemed to swallow me whole, making every step feel uncertain. But I didn't stop moving. My mind raced, and then my foot suddenly slipped on something wet, sending me crashing down hard onto the pavement. My palms scraped against the rough concrete, stinging sharply as I tried to catch myself. I scrambled to get back up, heart pounding, but that's when I heard it, breathing. Close by, too close for comfort. I pressed myself against the cold brick wall, chest heaving, desperately trying not to make a sound or draw attention. The alley was pitch black, except for a single flickering light at the far end, barely illuminating the shadows. Then I saw it. His shadow appeared, long, stretching across the brick, moving closer with every second. He was walking now, slow, deliberate steps echoing in the silence, taking his time like he already knew I had nowhere to go. I clenched my keys tighter in my fist. My whole body was shaking, but I was ready to swing if I had to, anything to protect myself. He stopped mid-alley, didn't say a word, didn't move, just stared in my direction. And even though I couldn't see his eyes, I swear I could feel them locked on me. Then he smiled. Not a wide smile, not a laugh, just a small curl of his lips, like he was enjoying this. And then he just turned around and walked back the way he came, slow, calm, like he'd already gotten what he wanted. I waited until he was gone before I moved, then I ran harder than I've ever run in my life. I made it to my apartment, slammed the door shut, locked every bolt, and slid down to the floor. My whole body was shaking. For weeks after that, I barely left after dark. I kept replaying that night in my head, wondering what he wanted from me. Why did he choose me? I never saw him again, but I'll never forget that smile, the kind of smile that tells you he'll be back. Maybe not for me, but for someone else. You made it to the end, but some don't. If you want to keep going deeper into the darkness, hit that subscribe button. Sights of Horror is waiting for you. The Lyft Driver, my scariest night ever. True story. This happened when I was 19. My name's Jayla. I was leaving a late-night kickback at a friend's apartment. The city felt different at this hour, empty but somehow alive. Streetlights flickered and the air was thick with that strange electric quiet you only get after midnight. It was around 2 a.m. and I didn't feel like waiting on the bus. The streets were deserted, shadows stretching long across the sidewalk. I could hear my own footsteps echoing, so I ordered a lift. The app said my driver's name was Marcus. His profile picture showed a man in his late 30s with a tired smile and deep-set eyes. I waited on the curb, watching headlights approach, my heart beating a little faster than usual. When the car pulled up, I slid into the back seat. Inside, the air was heavy with a strong smell, a mix of stale cigarettes and cheap cologne, and the radio played low, static-filled jazz. Marcus greeted me with a nod, barely glancing in the rearview mirror. His hands gripped the steering wheel a little too tightly. Something about the way he avoided eye contact made me uneasy, but I told myself it was just late and I was tired. I had no idea what the night had in store. It was just after midnight when I stepped out onto the quiet city street, the air thick with the lingering scent of rain and distant traffic. The only light came from flickering street lamps and the neon glow of a 24-hour diner across the road. The city felt different at this hour, emptier, as if the world had shrunk to just me and the echo of my footsteps. I checked my phone, watching the little car icon inch closer on the rideshare app. Moments later, a gray sedan rolled up to the curb, its headlights cutting through the darkness. The car looked ordinary enough, but in the stillness of the night, even the most mundane things can take on a strange edge. I glanced down at my phone, double-checking the driver's name and photo. The man behind the wheel matched the picture on the app. Same sharp jawline, same tired eyes. I always make a point to check, especially this late. Safety first, right? But as I looked from the screen to the man in the car, a chill crept up my spine. The resemblance was there, but something about his expression seemed different, harder, more distant. Maybe it was just the shadows playing tricks, or maybe it was the way he avoided my gaze, staring straight ahead as if lost in thought. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the cancel ride button for a split second. His face was illuminated by the dashboard lights, casting deep shadows that made his features look almost hollow. He didn't smile, didn't wave. Instead, he just sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly. There was an intensity in his eyes, a kind of heaviness that made me hesitate for a split second. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I'd watched too many late-night Sights of Horror videos. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something about him felt off. It was like he was waiting for something, or maybe hiding something. My heart thudded in my chest and I tried to steady my breathing. He didn't greet me, didn't ask if I was the right passenger, or even confirm my name. Instead, he just reached over, unlocked the door with a mechanical click, and gave a curt nod. No words, no smile, just a silent invitation to get in. The silence was thick, almost oppressive, broken only by the distant hum of the city. I hesitated, glancing up and down the empty street, but there was no one else around. The city felt deserted, no cars, no pedestrians, just the occasional gust of wind rattling a loose sign. With a deep breath, I opened the door and slid into the back seat, trying to convince myself that everything was fine. The interior of the car was dimly lit, the only illumination coming from the dashboard and the occasional flash of passing headlights. As I settled into the back seat, I was hit by a strong smell, a mix of stale cigarettes and cheap cologne, so overpowering it made my eyes water. An old air freshener dangled from the rear-view mirror, doing little to mask the odor. On the seat beside me, I noticed a crumpled pack of cigarettes and a half-empty bottle of water. I tried to ignore the uneasy feeling in my stomach, telling myself it was just a late-night ride, nothing more. But every little detail seemed to stand out, the way the leather seat stuck to my skin, the faint static of the radio left on a dead channel, the soft click of the driver's fingers tapping the wheel. As we pulled away from the curb, the city outside the window seemed to blur into streaks of color, red and green traffic lights, the blue glow of a police cruiser parked in the distance, the orange haze of sodium street lamps. The streets were almost completely empty, save for the occasional delivery truck or a lone cyclist weaving through puddles. The only sounds were the low rumble of the engine, the rhythmic slap of windshield wipers, and the distant wail of a siren somewhere far off. I watched the city slip by, block after block, each one emptier than the last. My mind wandered, replaying every horror story I'd ever heard, every warning about late-night rides. I glanced at my phone again, expecting to see the familiar notification that my ride had started. But the app still showed me waiting. I frowned, watching as the city lights blurred past the window. The driver hadn't started the trip on the app. He just drove off, silent and focused, as if he'd done this 1,000 times before. My mind raced with possibilities. Maybe he forgot. Maybe there was a glitch. But the longer we drove, the more uneasy I felt. Every instinct told me something wasn't right. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips as I gripped my phone tighter. I debated texting a friend just to let someone know where I was. My thumb hovered over the screen, but I didn't want to make it obvious. The driver's eyes flicked up to the rear-view mirror, catching my gaze for a split second before darting away. I swallowed, my mouth suddenly dry. Should I say something? Should I ask him to stop? The car felt smaller with every passing minute, the silence growing heavier. I cleared my throat, trying to sound casual. Aren't you supposed to start the ride?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. For a moment he didn't respond. Then slowly he glanced at me through the rearview mirror. His eyes met mine, dark, unreadable, and heavy with something I couldn't quite place. The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. Finally he muttered, "I'll start it in a sec." His voice was low, almost a growl, and it sent a shiver down my spine. I looked away, clutching my phone a little tighter, wondering if I should trust my gut or just chalk it up to nerves. The city outside seemed to blur as we drove deeper into the night, the world narrowing to the hum of the engine and the shadows flickering across the dashboard. I stared out the window, watching the empty intersections and shuttered shops slide past, each one a silent witness to my growing anxiety. Every instinct screamed at me to pay attention, to remember every detail, the route, the street names, the way the driver's knuckles whitened on the wheel. I couldn't help but wonder if I'd made a mistake getting into that car. And as the city faded behind us, swallowed by the darkness, I realized I was completely alone with a stranger, and the night was just beginning. The city outside was eerily quiet, streetlights flickering past as we rolled through the empty streets. The only sound was the low hum of the engine and the faint squeak of windshield wipers dragging across the glass. My heart thudded in my chest, each beat louder than the last. We hit the main road, then without warning he turned, wrong direction. My stomach twisted. "Hey, that's not the way to my place," I said, my voice shaking, louder this time. He didn't even flinch. Eyes locked on the road, jaw clenched, hands gripping the wheel tighter. No response, he just kept driving. My phone buzzed, my friend checking if I got home safe. That's when I noticed. The car took a sharp turn, veering off the main road. The street signs looked unfamiliar, and the city lights faded behind us. I think you missed the turn," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. The driver didn't answer. He just kept driving, eyes fixed on the road ahead. My hands shook as I typed, "Driver's going wrong way." My heart pounded in my chest. Before I could hit send, he snatched my phone from the back seat. "You don't need that," he said flatly. The air inside the car felt heavy, suffocating. My stomach dropped. The streets got emptier, factories, warehouses, nothing I recognized. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles white, palms slick with sweat. My heart hammered in my chest so loud I could almost hear it echoing in the silence. What am I doing here? Why did I take this ride? Every shadow seemed to move. My breath came faster, shallow. I tried to calm down, but my mind raced. What if something happens? No one knows where I am. The fear kept building, pressing in from all sides. I felt trapped, alone, and completely lost. He slowed the car near a stretch of boarded-up buildings. The night was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. The city seemed deserted, as if it had been abandoned long ago, leaving only shadows and whispers behind. The streetlights flickered intermittently, casting ghostly glows on the cracked pavements. I felt a chill run down my spine, a premonition of the danger that lay ahead. The car moved at a snail's pace, as if savoring the tension in the air. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, each beat echoing the growing sense of dread. Every second felt stretched, the world outside the window blurring into a nightmare landscape. I reached for the door handle. Locked. Panic surged through me like a tidal wave. My mind raced, trying to process the situation. Why was the door locked? I tugged at the handle again, hoping it was just a mistake, but it remained stubbornly shut. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. I was trapped. My breath quickened, and I could feel the walls of the car closing in on me. I glanced at the driver, his face a mask of indifference, as if he was completely unaware of my growing terror. My thoughts spiraled. Was this planned? Was there any way out? Then I noticed the child lock. That's when I screamed. The sound was primal, a raw expression of fear and desperation. It echoed in the confined space of the car, bouncing off the windows and reverberating in my ears. The child lock was a cruel twist, a mechanism meant to protect, now turned against me. I felt a surge of helplessness, a sinking feeling that I was at the mercy of the driver. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, each more frantic than the last. How could I escape? What would he do next? I scanned the car for anything I could use, a phone, a heavy object, anything, but my hands were shaking too much to focus. He swerved the car hard, yelling for me to shut up, but I didn't stop. My screams were a lifeline, a desperate attempt to break through the barrier of fear that surrounded me. The car lurched violently, throwing me against the door. I could hear the driver's voice, harsh and commanding, but I refused to be silenced. My voice was my only weapon, and I wielded it with all the strength I could muster. The car's erratic movements mirrored the chaos inside my mind, a storm of emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. I braced myself against the seat, trying to keep my balance as the car zigzagged through the empty streets. I clawed at the window, banged my fists, screaming at the top of my lungs. The glass was cold and unyielding, a barrier between me and the outside world. My hands ached from the effort, but I didn't care. I was fighting for my life. Each scream a plea for help, each bang a cry for freedom. The darkness outside seemed to press in on me, a suffocating presence that threatened to swallow me whole. I could feel the tears streaming down my face, a mix of fear and frustration. I was trapped, but I refused to give up. I tried to remember every self-defense tip I'd ever heard, but my mind was a blur of panic and adrenaline. Suddenly, headlights lit up behind us. A glimmer of hope flickered in my heart. Was it a passerby, someone who could help? The lights were bright, cutting through the darkness like a beacon. I prayed silently, hoping that whoever was behind us would notice my distress. The car's interior was filled with the harsh glow of the headlights, casting long shadows that danced across the seats. I could feel the driver's tension, a palpable energy that filled the air. He was aware of the car behind us, and I could sense his frustration growing. I waved frantically at the window, hoping the driver behind would see me. Another car. A horn blared. The sound was jarring, a sharp contrast to the oppressive silence that had enveloped us. It was a signal, a call to action. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a renewed sense of determination. The horn was a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't alone. I could see the driver's grip on the steering wheel tighten, his knuckles white with tension. He was losing control, and I could feel the balance of power shifting. The horn blared again, a persistent reminder that help was within reach. I banged harder, screaming for help, my voice hoarse but relentless. The Lyft driver cursed, sped up, then suddenly slammed the brakes. The sudden jolt threw me forward, the seatbelt cutting into my skin. My heart raced, a wild drumbeat that matched the chaos around me. The driver's frustration was palpable, a simmering anger that threatened to boil over. I could see his eyes in the rearview mirror, dark and filled with fury. He was losing control, and I could feel the tension in the air thickening. The car was a pressure cooker, and I was caught in the middle of it. I braced myself, every muscle tensed, ready for whatever would come next. He looked back at me, furious. His eyes were cold, a stark contrast to the heat of his anger. I could feel his gaze burning into me, a silent threat that hung in the air. But I refused to be intimidated. I met his gaze head-on, my own eyes filled with defiance. I was scared, but I wouldn't let him see it. I was determined to fight, to hold on to the hope that had been ignited by the car behind us. The driver's anger was a storm, but I was the eye, calm and resolute. I gripped the door handle, ready to act the moment I had a chance. Then, with a sudden jerky motion, he unlocked the door. "Get out," he growled. His voice was a low rumble filled with barely contained rage. The sound was a command, a dismissal. But to me it was freedom. I didn't hesitate. The moment the lock clicked open, I was ready. My hand was on the door handle, my body poised to escape. The driver's words were a release, a key that unlocked the chains that had held me captive. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, a powerful force that propelled me forward. I shoved the door open, not even looking back. I didn't wait. I bolted. The night air was a shock, cold and biting against my skin, but it was a welcome relief, a reminder that I was free. I could feel the pavement beneath my feet, solid and reassuring. I was out of the car, away from the driver and his anger. My heart was still racing, but it was a different kind of fear now, one that was tinged with hope. I was free, and I was determined to stay that way. I heard the car door slam behind me, the engine revving, but I didn't dare look back. Sprinting down the street, barefoot, after kicking my heels off. The ground was rough beneath my feet, but I didn't care. I was running for my life, each step taking me further away from the danger I had just escaped. The city was a blur around me, a dark canvas painted with streaks of light and shadow. I could hear my breath, ragged and uneven, a testament to the effort it took to keep moving. My mind raced. Where could I go? Was the other car still behind me? I darted between parked cars, ducking into shadows, desperate to put as much distance as possible between me and the Lyft driver. Every sound, a distant siren, a dog barking, the echo of my own footsteps, felt amplified, each one a possible threat or a sign of hope. I was free, and that was all that mattered. I was free, and I would keep running until I was safe. I didn't look back until I reached a 24-hour gas station. The run there felt endless, every shadow on the road stretching out behind me like a memory I couldn't shake. My hands were shaking so badly and my heart was pounding so loud I thought I might pass out. The gas station's harsh fluorescent lights felt like a sanctuary, a small island of safety in the middle of the night. I just stood there for a moment, trying to catch my breath, trying to convince myself that I was really safe. The world felt distant, unreal, as if I'd crossed into some other version of reality where nothing could be trusted. The clerk noticed me right away. Maybe it was the way I stumbled inside or the wild look in my eyes. He asked, "Are you okay?" His voice was gentle, but I could barely get the words out. I think someone tried to hurt me," I stammered, my voice trembling. He didn't hesitate. He picked up the phone and called the cops. I remember standing there under the harsh lights, feeling exposed and vulnerable, as if the danger might still be lurking just outside in the darkness. The clerk kept glancing at the door as if he expected someone to burst in at any moment. I could hear my own breathing, ragged and uneven, echoing in the empty store. The police arrived quickly, their lights flashing in the night, but it was already too late. They searched the area, took my statement, and promised to do everything they could, but they never found him. It was as if he had vanished into the night, leaving behind only fear and unanswered questions. One officer tried to reassure me, saying, "You did the right thing coming here, you're safe now." But their words felt hollow, like a script they'd recited too many times before. I kept replaying everything in my mind, wondering if I'd ever feel safe again. The parking lot outside was empty except for the police cars, their lights painting the world in red and blue. I felt small, insignificant, like a shadow passing through someone else's nightmare. Lyft deactivated his account as soon as they heard what happened. I got an email saying he'd never drive for them again, but that didn't make me feel safer. The app was gone, but the fear lingered. I kept thinking about how easy it had been for him to get so close, how quickly things had spiraled out of control. Technology can offer convenience, but it can't always guarantee safety. I deleted the app from my phone, my hands still shaking, as if erasing it could somehow erase the memory, but the sense of violation stayed with me, a constant reminder that the world could change in an instant. In the days and weeks that followed, I found myself haunted by the experience. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, felt his. I jumped at every sound, flinched when my phone buzzed, and avoided going out after dark. My friends tried to comfort me, but I could see the worry in their eyes. "You're safe now," they'd say, but I didn't feel safe. I felt changed, like a part of me had been left behind on that dark road. I started double-checking the locks, memorizing license plates, and texting friends my location every time I got into a car. The sense of freedom I used to feel was gone, replaced by a constant undercurrent of anxiety. I wish I could go back to the way things were before, but some experiences change you forever. Every time I see a gray sedan, my chest tightens. It doesn't matter if it's the same make or model, just the color is enough to bring it all rushing back. I catch myself scanning the faces of drivers, searching for any sign of recognition, even though I know it's unlikely. The fear is irrational, but it's real. It's a reminder that danger can look ordinary, that sometimes the scariest things are the ones that blend in. I started having nightmares. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, convinced that someone was outside my window. I'd lie there listening to the silence, waiting for the fear to pass. Because I know if that other car hadn't pulled up behind us, if someone else hadn't been there at just the right moment, things could have ended very differently. I replay that moment over and over, thinking about how close I came to disappearing into the night, how a stranger's presence changed everything. Sometimes it's the smallest twist of fate that saves us. I wish I could thank that driver, whoever they were. Their headlights were like a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge. I might not be here telling this story. Every time I remember that night, I'm reminded of how fragile safety can be, and how important it is to trust your instincts. I'm grateful for the chance to share what happened, hoping it might help someone else stay safe. The fear hasn't gone away, but neither has my determination to keep moving forward, one night at a time. Sometimes when the sun rises and the world feels new again, I let myself hope that the worst is behind me, but I know I'll never forget. And maybe that's okay. Maybe surviving means carrying the memory and using it to protect myself and others in the future. What would you have done if this happened to you? Don't keep it to yourself. Please comment below. And if real horror is your thing, subscribe to Sites of Horror and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. The Neighbor Downstairs, True Urban Horror Story. I'm DeAndre. I was 28 when this happened. I just moved into a small spot on the west side. Cheap rent, barely enough to cover the bills. It felt like a win, until it didn't. The first night he introduced himself, I didn't think anything of it. He smiled, but his eyes didn't smile. He said, "If you ever need anything, I'm always around." 3 months later, I learned what he meant by that. I remember the apartment like it was a cast of old movie film. Narrow hallway, fluorescent light that flickered on bad nights, peeling paint near the stairwell. My spot was small, but it was mine. I kept my tools in the kitchen cabinet, my sneakers by the door, everything placed the way I liked it. It was the first place I could actually call mine since college. He lived downstairs. Mid-40s, heavy set, broad shoulders, even when he wore that sweater that was 2 sizes too small. He introduced himself the day I moved, came up the stairs with a grocery bag like he was delivering a welcome gift. He spoke slow. His voice had a weight to it. He lingered when we shook hands. His stare lasted too long, like he was cataloging me. At first it was small stuff, a comment in the stairwell. "You got that beard looking sharp, boy." A wave that felt like it had a calendar attached, like he knew my schedule. I brushed it off. People in the building talked. Neighbors checked each other out, but it kept happening. Nothing big, just eyes, footsteps, presence. Then the nights started. I'd be up late, just doing freelance work, late night hustle, when I'd hear the slow shuffle of footsteps in the stairwell, heavy, deliberate. They'd walk to the landing outside my door, stop, stand there, no knocking, no keys, just breathing space. I peeked through the peephole. There he was, standing in the dim, leaning against the banister, watching. I'd freeze. He never looked away from the door, never moved for minutes, like he was waiting for something to happen. The first time I saw him through the peephole, I thought it was a coincidence. The third time, I started locking my deadbolt twice. The fifth time, I told myself to move faster when I came in from work. But it didn't stop there. He started showing up out in the neighborhood, at the corner store when I got off my shift, at the bus stop, sitting on the bench, head down like he just happened to be there. Once I saw him across the street, standing under a streetlight, watching me walk by. He didn't move until I did. When I looked back from the doorway of my building, he was already gone. I called the landlord after the scraping at the door. I'd been lying in bed that night, almost asleep. The kind of tired where the body is out but the mind isn't. Then I heard it, metal against metal, a faint scrape that turned into a rhythm. I jumped up so fast the air hit my chest cold, peered through the peephole. There he was, crouched, messing with my lock, his hands pulling on the door, feeling the latch like a man learning the shape of a key. For a second I wanted to throw the door open and meet him face to face. Instead I yelled, "What the hell are you doing?" He stood up slow, looked straight at the peephole, smiled that same smile that didn't reach his eyes. Then he walked back down. The landlord said he'd talk to him. That's what landlords always say. He's been here for years. Kinda strange, but harmless. Strange and harmless are the same words people use until someone gets hurt. After that I started keeping my phone on the nightstand, charged, within reach. I bought a cheap door reinforcement, one of those metal plates you screw into the frame. I installed it myself at 2 in the morning with a flashlight between my teeth like I was trying to hold my life together with a screwdriver and elbow grease. 2 weeks later I came home from an overnight shift. The building smelled different when I walked in, like bleach and old wood. My lock, it was busted. The deadbolt hung at an angle. The door frame splintered like a fist had punched the bone of it. My gut dropped to my knees. I fumbled the keys with hands that wouldn't do what I told them to. When I pushed the door, my place looked violated. Clothes on the floor, drawers pulled out and emptied. My jacket on the couch zipped open like a mouth. Books scattered across the rug. It felt staged, like someone wanted me to see that they'd been there, but nothing of real value was missing. My TV, my laptop, everything expensive, untouched. It wasn't robbery, it was message. I set my phone to record and started walking through the room slow. Every small sound was a drumbeat. In the kitchen there was a mug, mine, left on the counter like someone had sipped and decided to stay. On my dresser, a sock folded just so, with an odd little note tucked inside it. I froze when I saw the note. It wasn't a threat, it wasn't a line, it was one sentence. You don't even know how close you are. No signature, no explanation. The handwriting looked like his, thick letters, deliberate. I called the police. They came, took pictures, wrote a report. Could be kids, one officer said. Could be squatters. They were polite. They were busy. They said the building had cameras in the hallways. But on the day of the incident, the camera outside my floor had been out of service. Funny how that works. I stayed at a friend's place that night. I slept on a couch that didn't look the same as mine, too bright, too many pillows. When you sleep somewhere that's not yours, you wake up with someone else's silence. I tried to convince myself it was enough. I tried to convince myself I could come back, fix the frame, throw out what was left and go about my life. But the heavy footsteps followed me like a shadow with legs. A week later I went back to pack what I could, only the stuff I couldn't do without. A few clothes, some papers, my tools. When I opened the closet there were scratches on the inside of the door, long, deep gouges, like someone had been pushing at it from the other side. Wet, dark marks that could have been sweat. Fingerprints on the inside of the knob. I took a box to the trunk of my car and left everything else. On the sidewalk, a neighbor I barely knew watched me from across the street. She shook her head when she saw me staging my life in cardboard. Been meaning to move for months, I told her. She didn't ask why. Some things people don't ask about, they just know. The night I finally left for good, I stopped at the top of the stairs, looked down the hallway one last time, saw his door closed, saw the light under it go out. I felt like I was walking away from someone who'd been waiting for me to walk into a room I didn't even know was part of my life. Sometimes, months after I moved, I'd feel that old itch at the base of my neck, the kind of prickly feeling you get when you're being watched. I'd lie in bed and imagine those heavy footsteps outside a door that wasn't mine anymore. Sometimes, in the dead hour when the city sleeps and the only sounds are sirens and a distant train, I wake up thinking I hear him. Slow steps on the landing outside my door. My hands still clamp around my phone like a lifeline. I check the locks like a ritual. What haunts me most isn't the broken door or the note or the footage the landlord conveniently lost. It's the way he smiled through the peephole like he'd already counted me before I even moved in, like he had a list of names, like he'd practiced waiting. I tell this not because I want you to be scared of every neighbor. I tell this because there are people who look harmless, who smile, who say they're always around. They learn the rhythms of life. They memorize your walk from the bus stop to your door. They know what kind of mail you get. They know when you work nights. That knowledge loosens lines. It makes the world small, and small worlds can get very dangerous very quickly. So if you live in the city, if you've got a spot you barely can afford, if you've got a beard and you work late and you lock your deadbolt and still feel exposed, listen, keep your circle tight. Tell someone each time something doesn't sit right. Not just the landlord, not just the officer who writes reports and walks back to his car. Tell a friend. Make noise, change routines, don't let harmless become a habit. One last thing, because this is the part that sits heavy with me. I don't know what happened to the tenants before me. I don't know who else he watched. All I know is, sometimes when I'm walking past a stairwell, I see a man leaning on a banister. I see him watch the doors, and the world squeezes cold. If you hear heavy footsteps in the stairwell, don't think it's nothing. Don't wait for the scraping. Don't wait for the note. Don't let "I'll handle it" be the last thing you say, because when someone tells you they're always around, they might mean it. I'm DeAndre. If you hear this, be careful who you say hello to. Before you go, ask yourself this. Why do you keep watching? Curiosity or something darker? Subscribe to Sites of Horror to feed the fear.